Welcome to another edition of the Sports Talk with Devin Wade podcast. My friend and special teams member Reggie Brown is aboard, and boy, we can see him in HD now. My man is vivid. I,
Let's
I can see
go.
you clearly. Yeah. Again, welcome aboard. This is episode 309, and we've been at it. And again, we continue to enhance things, and we'll find out. I'll reveal ways that you guys can contribute at some point as well. But what I want you to do is know that this is interactive. And that means that you can call 24 hours a day, our sports line, leave a question, a comment, any sort of suggestion, request at 832-941-6614. That's 832-941-6614. And the Sports Talk with Devin Wade Facebook page is always a great way to get involved, and of course on YouTube at the Devin Wade. And that is a way to subscribe and like. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We need those subscriptions more than we do the likes, but we want the likes as well. So this time out, we're going to talk
Let's
a little bit of
go.
NFL. We're going to talk some gambling. We're going to talk about some World Series and maybe a little bit of college football as well. But first and foremost, welcome aboard, Reg. Glad to have you back, and glad to be chopping it up. We're getting pretty consistent now. We once a week now. We're rolling again.
Let's go, man. Let's go. Let's go, man. We upgrading and I'll have my man cave together in the next couple of weeks and we turning up, man. We finna take podcast YouTube by storm. This just been the training grounds and now
Right.
we getting ready to take off. So let's go.
So let's start with the gambling scandal in the NBA. Before we get to what's happening on the court, we didn't have a chance. All that stuff broke right after we dropped the last episode. So like all of
Yep.
it, the sports world went crazy right after all of that, right after we dropped that last podcast. So what are your takeaways? Give me your overall take on all of it.
Well, it's egregious, obviously, particularly players and coaches getting involved is a very serious thing. I tend to think it's always been going on. And, we talked about this offline that when sports get into the gambling business, this is what you're going to have. And I think that Major League Baseball, NFL, and NBA are all in the gambling business. There's, FanDuel, DraftKings, et cetera, et cetera. And it's so enticing to people to want to get involved. And that's what we're seeing.
And I didn't think of this until you just said this, but a lot of people, you said it's been going on for a long time, but when you say that, you are also a member of the NFL. Did you ever get a sense that anything weird was going on around the league? I never really, it never dawned on me to ask you that. I didn't think that was your position, that this was a ongoing thing for years. But I mean, people think that the NFL is fixed and they have a script and all of this craziness that Goodell and his staff of writers come up with the outcomes of the NFL season in February
Yeah.
and right after the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
You played in the NFL. You were in locker rooms. You were there for years. Talk a little bit about, did you ever see anything or feel like something was awry in some way?
Well, I'll tell you the game that I'm associated with that most people say, there must have been some cheating was the Buffalo Bills game that Buffalo came back and beat us and, all of that kind of stuff. And people, oh, they cheated and that this and this. And my answer to that is that's not how cheating goes in professional sports. It's not organizationally, it's not groups of people getting together to determine the outcome. It's individuals, making bets and stuff. And, sometimes those individuals can affect the outcomes of the games. You look at a referee dropping a flag on 3rd and 5 when they get it could possibly affect the outcome of a game. So there are some opportunities there, but I don't think it's anything that people get together and script and talk about. It's individuals, who, as Charles Barkley said, either are stupid because they done got in too deep with the gambling, or they really need some money and, and trying to get it back quickly.
Talk a little bit about those warnings you guys got from the NFL, whether you're talking about sort of your rookie symposium, to whatever
Yeah.
extent you guys had that. I
Yeah.
know you had some of that, but also talk a little bit about
Yeah.
it
Well, it's
had to
it's
be a
all
topic.
around the locker room. Well,
No,
yeah,
go ahead.
I apologize for cutting you off. Yeah, it's all around the locker room. It's you go through the rookie symposium. Every year you come back, the feds are telling you about, hey, you may have this drug dealer or this person come and talk to you about making a quick $100,000. And it's, the reality of it is, when we look at these athletes, the majority of them are not making $100,000, right? I'll give you an example of myself. When I played with the Oilers, I made $150,000 my first year, right? Which is, was good money at the time and still is good money, but it wasn't $1 million money. And after, paying taxes and taking care of my mom and trying to live an NFL lifestyle, you're really talking about $60,000, $70,000 that I had. And so, I wonder if someone would have came to me and said, hey, we can get you $50,000 if you did this. I wonder if I would have looked at it or not. I mean, it can be enticing because all of the guys aren't millionaires and billionaires and they're living a certain lifestyle, and trying to keep up with it can be difficult when that money, Uncle Sam getting his piece, the agent getting his piece, and mama and daddy getting his piece, cousin getting his piece. It can be enticing.
Well, and I will say that the money in the NBA now, 30 years down the road, is just, I mean, you're talking about 19, $20 million a year. So it's entirely different. So here are my thoughts on it. And I
Yeah.
talked about this on KTSU Sports Talk. First of all, I think I'm not, in the grand scheme of things, I'm not worried about any of this in comparison, except for the Rozier component. So let's talk a little bit about the poker game. So what you're telling me, Cash Patel, is the whole world has to have this massive press conference about cats stealing money in an illegal poker game. So you got criminals stealing from criminals, and that takes priority over like real stuff that's going on out here right now, real corruption, real crime that
Well,
needs to be looked into. I'm just, to me, it's that part. You can miss me with the headline news. It's a story and it's not
right.
right, and it can lead to a whole lot of other things. But that in itself, the lead is a basketball player teamed up with the mob, the five families, to rob victims in an illegal poker game. So that is an issue that you have to put these things in perspective. I think a lot of this is really overblown, only to the extent that the NBA and Major League Baseball and the NFL and NHL and college, they really have to examine prop bets and where this thing has and can go wrong, especially with the Rozier thing. That, by the way, was investigated and he was cleared. Now, that leads to more questions, right? So that means, is the NBA covering it
Right.
up? Is the NBA not thorough enough? Obviously, the NBA is not the FBI. They can't do all the things the FBI can. So I think that is the story moving forward. Now, and finally, and I'll go back to you, the early reporting of, so what was happening was guys would be at the shoot around and get inside information on what guy was going to go that night and who wasn't. Again, not cool, wrong, and it's worthy of getting you banned for life. But it's not the same as betting on your team or throwing a game. The Rozier thing, that's bad. The Rozier thing, if true. Now again, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. And they blasted Chauncey Billups and Rozier all over the place. I've not seen the mobsters that were arrested. So that again, that's another layer to this conversation that is very, very uncomfortable. Like, why are we just talking about these guys who you said did not organize the game? They just brought it. They were face cards. They were guys that brought guys to the games. So, and to the extent that they knew anything was illegal, who knows? Probably so. They probably had an idea, all of that stuff will be worked out. But the lead is, oh, we need to, revamp everything because some guys cheated in an illegal poker game. So again, it ain't right and it's
Well,
all wrong. But put it in
right.
perspective.
Well, I think the only thing that makes it illegal is the government ain't getting the taxes off it, right? If you report it and you do all this stuff, then it's not an illegal taxes. It's not even an illegal game. So,
Well, you can't
again,
legally
that's
you
when.
can't legally gamble though, right? Right? You can't legally have these unless the
Well,
laws
it
permit
depends
you
on
in
what
different.
state you're in, I imagine. Yeah,
Right.
I
I don't
guess it
yeah.
depends on what state you're in, right? But also, I mean, I was gambling at 10 years old in the bathroom, shooting dice and flipping coins. So there's that. But I think that the headline of what you said and the seriousness of it was lost when they started trying to merge these two things together. Those
Yeah,
should have been very separate things that we talked about.
right. Now, again, all of it, but it's almost like say you in a dice game and you using illegal dice. Okay, that's wrong, and that could get you shot depending on where you are. But that's not something you have breaking news and a national press
Right,
conference
right,
about.
right.
With all of the hyperbolic language around this, we're talking about some cats that cheated other guys that knowingly participated in a high stakes illegal poker game. Again, a lot wrong with it, but it's not headline news in the grand scheme of everything that's going
So
on right now.
so let me ask you this. Does it change anything in sports?
I think it will because everybody is forced to look at it now. The hypocrisy, the double standards, all of the things that go with it. We talked about this like LeBron is literally in a gambling commercial. Now, interestingly enough, with DraftKings, you can bet on the NBA, and I do, but he doesn't talk about the NBA in his commercial. He's on with Kevin Hart talking about the NFL. So, like, how weird and bizarro world is all of this when you talk about getting
That's what I
in bed
mean.
with gambling?
Well, that's why I don't think this changes anything. I mean, they may change the way that they look at disseminating that information now, but
Well,
in the
yeah.
big scheme of things, I think you hear about this week, and in 3 weeks, there may be a Senate hearing on it, and there'll be the lights and the cameras, but ultimately, gamblers in sports, and it's going to stay that way.
The one thing that I would like to see, honestly, and I don't even care as much on the pro level, but I do think prop bets on college kids is wrong. And what ends up happening is if an 18-year-old underperforms, I'm not even talking about them being involved in the cheating. Just saying they playing straight up. You know, and I know in college football, kids are kids, bro. These 18, 19, 20-year-olds, some weeks they show up and they look like Heisman Trophy winners, and then they go missing for 3 weeks. And it could be behind a girlfriend or midterm or mama tripping or something going on in the hood with your people. Whatever, it can be anything, and these kids drop off. What happens is with this prop betting is people bet on that stuff, and if you let them down, they get mad at you. And we've seen, like they said, death threats on certain players. And that's the ugly side of sports and the ugly side of gambling that nobody's talking about.
Right, right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, it's tough.
So Major League Baseball is already talking about dealing with the prop bets. So that is something that I think will be reformed. I also think the reporting of injuries is going to be more detailed and more frequent from the NBA. And that needs to happen because you don't need to be giving anybody inside information. And that looks like that's what was happening. So we'll have to see. But I know a
Well,
lot of people are upset with Chauncey.
ultimately, I think that the feds are always 6 months behind the criminals, and so when they find a way to change this thing, the criminals will go and find another way to cheat, to get over, and do all of this stuff. And you just have to be diligent from a league perspective, no matter what the league is.
And we've seen annually now the NFL handing out suspensions. I think most famously Calvin Ridley was was suspended for a year. The NFL is handling theirs, and I hope the players are getting the message. But in the grand scheme of things, the worst thing was the Rozier component. But ultimately, how much did that
Yeah,
impact the
that was bad.
ending of the game? Did that? How much did that impact the game? Any of it is bad, but I just think that this was a tad bit overblown, and for the first time, the national media was forced to look into what all this gambling really means in the world of sports.
And that's first and foremost. Was the integrity of the game compromised? If there's the outside noise and the outside, somebody told him he wasn't going to play, all of those different things, somebody told him about whatever. As long as the integrity of the game stays intact, I think we'll be fine with sports.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. NBA talk. Rockets finally
Yeah.
got their first win. Golden State is looking really, really good. You got certain players.
Man,
Austin Reeves in LA is on fire. Who else has been on fire? It was somebody else that had a couple of big games. Luca,
the big kid in San Antonio is
Wembanyama. Yeah.
yeah, and then the Flag is looking good as a rookie. He looks like he's gonna be all that was built up about him. So, it's one of those things that I don't know if you've noticed this. I know at least for me, I have. In the past couple of years, the NFL, the NBA has not been a thing for me until after Christmas, Christmas Day. And I'm noticing this year that more people are talking about the NBA, more people are talking about players. More people are talking about what Golden State is doing. What do you attribute that to?
Well, and I wonder the same thing because I wonder, is it just us? Because we are in Houston, and now you got Durant, and it was highly anticipated.
Mm,
Is it the same nationally? I'm not sure. It feels like it's a national thing, right? It feels like everybody's talking about it. However, I do understand that we are in a bubble of the Houston Rockets and the Kevin Durant bubble of sorts. So I
yeah,
wonder the same thing, but it does feel different. This season feels really different to start with. And I just don't know if it's a regional thing or if this is something that's happening nationally. I guess we'll have to see some of the ratings. I know that Peacock is back in the game with the Tuesday night doubleheader. You have Prime, which Prime is doing a great job with basketball. And then I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out,
mhm,
how can I watch all of these games, because they're all over the place this year. And
right, right, right.
it's so far so good. It makes October, November a lot more fun. We just had, by the way, Reg, did you know that we just had the sports equinox? Did you hear about this?
Uh-uh. FYI, get one of them fire sticks. You'll be all right.
Oh, I'm good. Although I do things the proper way. I don't. I'm handling it proper. No, I mean, yes.
Mm,
Yes, I do
yeah.
have a
I'm
proper
just saying to
fire.
our loyal listeners.
Right, right. So, but I'm doing it the right way. So, just for the record,
Yes,
I'm doing it the right way.
yes.
so, so, but the
Uh,
sports equinox was this. It was the only day, I guess one of the only, or maybe the only day of the year where all four major sports had games that day. You had the World Series, you had the NFL, you had Major League Baseball, and NHL. And one day, and this is the only time it can happen. It's the only time it can happen. So from that standpoint, it's pretty exciting. I wish I watched more hockey, which I might try to again, but yeah, it's a whole lot of fun. So let's shift gears and talk about the NFL. The Houston Texans got what I would say was a surprising win against the San Francisco 49ers. What were your thoughts about the Texans getting their first win against a winning team?
Well, I still hold out hope for the Texans. I think they're a pretty good football team if they can get the protection. You can win some football games, particularly with that defense. And I think that I saw CJ Stroud, seemingly take a step this year. in terms of the way he delivered the football, in terms of the way he controlled the offense. I thought they did a better job of play calling. So all of the things, when you win, everything seems to look good and all the problems seem to be fixed. And then when you lose, none of it looks right.
So I hate to be Debbie Downer, but I gotta be Debbie
No.
Downer a bit. Wah, wah.
Yeah.
So,
Uh-huh.
okay, you beat the 49ers. However, and again, I think the game plan was perfect. And I think this is the prototype of how they want to win. If they can execute this, they'll be fine. However, wah, wah, Fred Warner gone for the year, right? One of the best defensive players in the entire NFL. He was gone for the year, didn't play. In that game, and I was there, 4 different defensive players left the game for San Francisco and did not return. Now, again, you have to beat who's in front of you. And I do think that they schemed a different way. They brought in a extra blocker. Every single play was like number 57 is reported as eligible. They went heavy. They went big. He wasn't flushed out of pocket except for maybe 1 or 2 times. If they can keep that recipe, and even they did this without Nico Collins, I suspect things are going to be a lot more difficult against Denver.
Well, I think that again, it comes down to scheming and game planning with the players that you have. Yeah, I don't put as much stock in the San Francisco losing maybe those 4 players as you do. And you know this in a given NFL game, man, you have 3, 4 players go down on the side of the ball every week. I mean, that's just what it is. Some return, some don't. I thought that that was a really good step for the Texans. But you know this in NFL, it's all about consistency. The Miami Dolphins had a great week. I mean, we looked like we could have been Super Bowl champions last week. But 5 weeks prior to that, we lost every one. And so, you got to be consistent, and we'll see if the Texans are consistent.
Interesting matchup for Miami. You got Baltimore this week. The teams that are probably 2 of the most disappointing in the NFL. How do you see this week's matchup?
Of
I mean,
course.
I don't even know who to pick, man. I'm going to be honest.
You know, Lamar will be back. And so if you're going to be betting, I would imagine you would take Baltimore just because Lamar is back, and they got a good win last week, and they kind of righted the ship a little bit, getting that win back, and the weeks are ticking away, and so they got to start putting some wins together. So I imagine Lamar is going to be ready to go. They'll be ready to go. The game is in Miami. It's on Thursday night. So we'll see what happens. I'll be picking the Dolphins, but I pick them every week. So there's that.
Yeah, it's a weird year in that nobody's really separating themselves. I do think that it was a big win. Kansas City continues to roll. They look dominant. And obviously, Jaden Daniels didn't play. I thought that Pittsburgh missed the opportunity. They looked horrible. You look at San Francisco in their division, they look like they're at least the second best team in that division after Sunday. Now that may change again, but we are seeing a lot going week to week. Just the swinging of the
Why is
pendulum.
it so hard for you to say Indy?
Well, because it's Indy.
Mhm.
I mean, we'll see them twice. We will see them twice. They're putting up 30 plus points a game. They are legit. But we've also seen this from like Minnesota last year, right? When Minnesota went 14-2 or something like that, and got off to this miraculous start, but nobody was afraid of them the whole year long. Um, Philadelphia bouncing back with the Saquon Barkley performance against the Giants. Giants, they're crestfallen because Scatterboo is done for the year. But it's hard.
Oh,
It's hard
what a
to know
gruesome
what to make.
injury, man.
I didn't actually see it, and I'm glad I didn't. But it's so hard to know or to believe in a team. We're coming off playing Monday night a week and a half ago, or whatever, against Seattle. Seattle's defense looked like a Super Bowl caliber defense against the Texans. However, they still turned the ball over 4 times and kept the Texans in the game. Can't believe
Uh-huh.
in them. Who
Mhm.
can you believe in this league right now?
And then there's the Cowboys.
Yeah. Yeah,
They're
but I'm saying
crazy.
who is it? Who do you most believe in the NFL right now? If you had to bet the farm on any team right now, who are you betting on?
Well, I think it's what we said, early on. You expect Philadelphia and Kansas City to be there, and that's really all you can bet on right now is Philadelphia and Kansas City. I suspect if Lamar comes back and gets it going, Baltimore will be there too.
You think they can come all the way back?
And I also say I say Buffalo as well. Buffalo, they got a couple loss. They righted the ship. Obviously, they righted the ship with the Panthers. So, you don't really count it as such, but in the NFL, you're gonna lose a couple of games. There's only been one team that's been undefeated, my Miami Dolphins. And so you're gonna lose some games. But I think Buffalo will be right there as well.
But the one team that I would bet on, especially since Rasheed Rice and Worthy have gotten back, is you gotta bet. To me, you gotta bet on Kansas City. Now, can Philadelphia run like that consistently? Are they going to be recommitted to being able to run? Well, being recommitted to running, and can they run like they did last year? I think they'd be hard pressed to put up the numbers from last year because that was an all-time great season from Saquon Barkley. But are they going to be recommitted, and what does that mean for AJ Brown and company?
Well, I think that the running games opens up everything. And so when Saquon gets going, now they have to take another man and put him in the box to stop the run. And then Brown and Smith now get one-on-one coverage. And then life is great. But it all starts in Philadelphia with running the football. And also with KC, there was a resurgence of Travis Kelsey. And I thought that, he is Mahomes said he's the glue that makes them go. When you can get the tight end involved in that offense, that gets them really going. And the Swifties are back, so there's that.
Well, I think when you get Worthy and Rice able to stretch the field, you create a lot of space for Travis Kelsey to get going. And I think that he is a direct
Yes.
beneficiary of those returning receivers, one from injury, one from suspension. So it'll be interesting. Denver comes to town, one of the more intriguing teams. When you look at it, it looks like Bo Nix is the truth. They're rolling. I cannot stand Sean Payton, but right now they're rolling. I don't think that they're a threat to Kansas City. What do you think?
To be the king, you got to beat the king. And until they do that, it's a good story and they're rolling. But, you don't get those titles until you beat them. And they'll get two chances this year to beat them.
We don't have a lot of time this time out, but so let's shift gears now and go to college football. Another week, another fired football coach. In fact, coaches are being paid $168 million to not coach teams. You're talking about Mike Gundy, James
That's crazy.
Franklin, Brian Kelly, a couple of others. The guy Napier in Florida won the game and got fired. How crazy and how unrealistic are some of these schools in firing their coach moving forward?
Well, I think that with a couple of them, you have to go back to the previous years or so where they weren't having success. The guy in Florida has not been having success for a couple of years now, and you could see that handwriting was on the wall. Uh, the one again we talked about this. The Penn State thing is just unbelievable. But I do think a lot of this is part and parcel to the NIL deals. And when you're putting that much money in and, you're paying these players that amount of money, people want results and they want results now. And losing 3 or 4 games is just not going to get it, particularly for those Power Five schools that are investing that type of money.
It is a crazy, crazy time because it makes the next hire for all of these schools so that much more critical because you can't keep paying out. I don't care who you are, unless you got Elon Musk back in your program. Money is finite. you don't have the money to keep buying out contracts. So I think that is something. You did mention something to me when we talked off the air about not being afraid of A&M. Not yeah, although they look great against LSU, you don't think that they're as legit as they might appear to be. What do you? I mean, elaborate on that for me.
Well, I'm just saying that they haven't played anybody yet. And, you get trial by fire in an NCAA season. You have a couple of tough games as you start leading up to playoff season. And we've looked at their schedule. They don't have that game that you circled that says, "Damn, we got to be ready for them." And we could, so that part concerns me for them. Now, when you look at them play as a team, they got athletes all over the field, and so they got some chances. And uh, but I'd be totally shocked if they won a national championship or even made it into the final two.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about they haven't played Alabama, Georgia. They did play LSU on the schedule before the season. That looked like a really formidable game, and they did beat Notre Dame. So there's that.
Right.
But they still have to tangle with UT, and for the first time in a long time, that is going to be as important a game as there is, for this time of or that time of the year coming up 3 weeks away. So let's talk a little bit about the SWAC,
Yeah.
Magic City. Magic City, you guys did it. Talk a little bit about it. Brag on your team.
Well, did you see 70,000 pack the house to come see the Hornet beat the brakes off the Bulldogs? I mean, it was such an amazing game. It reminds me that, you typically don't see scores like that in rivalry games, and to come out and play the way that Alabama State played in that rivalry game on that stage was absolutely amazing. And we got a tough one this week in Prairie View, and so the schedule continues to get tougher and tougher. And we're hoping for some luck that Jackson State. We got the first part of it. Jackson State lost last week. I thought it was tough for both Jackson State and Grambling, both losing their quarterbacks in that game. And luckily that both of them are doing all right. Although I think Jackson's quarterback is out for the rest of the year. But
I
the
would be
SWAC man is picking up interest.
and you talk about Xavier T-Set, who I called this game a few weeks ago. He may not come back this year either. I'm not sure yet. However, that was a very scary injury. You and I were actually watching that game and commenting on that game. Really, a bad blow was a very scary situation. But you talk about a beautiful sight. The fans going to Vegas. That game was in Vegas. See the Jackson State fans and the Grambling State fans there. That was something. Now right now atop the East, it's a three-way tie, and that may be ultimately
Wow.
beneficial if it ends that way. You got Bethune-Cookman 3-1, Jackson State 3-1, Alabama State 3-1 in the East. On the West, now you're gonna have a situation where it'll be, if Prairie View cannot beat Alabama State, you got Prairie View's rolling, but we're right there nipping at the heels. We have the Braves Alcorn State coming in Saturday. Saturday is going to be a very interesting game. It really is a must win for both Prairie View, but more so, it's a must win for Alabama State.
Well, let me ask you this. Can you make sense or at least say it to our fans? Because I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out about which games count, what doesn't count, how are things decided, all of that, because it's very confusing. And all the fans are, I'm getting people calling me and asking me, well, what happens if we beat Prairie View? Does that do anything for us? And what happens if Jackson State loses to all of the stuff? So can you just go through that a little?
Okay, at the end of the year, and I know exactly what you're referring to. At the end of the year, the tiebreakers will be the tiebreakers. If it's two teams head to head, if it's three teams, other things come into play. The question you're asking is there are some games among conference members that do not count in the conference standings. And it's only a couple of games that are like that. So the rule of thumb is generally if the game is between teams from different divisions, and that happens before October, it's usually a game that those schools committed to, but it does not count in the conference standing. So if you have, say, Prairie View and Alabama State, if had they played in September, that game likely would not have counted because it was not a part of the rotation, as it were. So I think the game, what was the game early in the year? Was it Southern and Jackson State? I think that might have
Bama
been the
State and
game.
Southern.
Yeah, okay. That game, and I think it might have taken place in the first weekend of October, but generally anything before October, when the conference schedule really kicks in, those games are considered non-conference. They don't count in the conference standings. So it's not as complicated as it would seem. I think that they can do a better job of indicating this game is not a conference game, and so the fans won't be as confused. But
Well, I think none of that makes any sense either. These are you're in the conference, you're playing a conference game. Why does it matter when you play them?
Well, here's the deal. So again, you play every team in your division and you rotate the teams
Right.
from the East. So you'll play 3 games a year with, if you're in the West, you play 3 Eastern teams a year. What happens is some of these games are so lucrative and the fans and the tradition dictate that they want to see these games played, that you're going to see these matchups happen. So it's a decision with the schools. And I think it goes down back to some of the tradition and making sure certain rivalries are sustained and certain games are played because, quite frankly, for some of these schools, would you rather play HCU or would you rather play Southern? Would you rather play Alabama State or Sam Houston? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to throw out teams. So, or Lamar, or somebody like that. So sometimes those games, even though they don't count, are much more lucrative. So it just comes down to the rotation because, for a couple of years there, we didn't play Alabama State. They weren't a part of our rotation. We hadn't played Valley for
Right.
years before we played them this season.
Does any other conference operate like this?
I'm sure that you may have a game or two, but nothing comes to mind. And I don't think. Well, I don't know. I would have to look at that because some of the big schools, some of those rivalries. But now the big games are between conferences with the big 4. So I'm not sure with the changing landscape, but I did get clarity on that point about those games being not counting in the conference standings. But as it stands, the games that do count are very, very interesting. And I think, like I said, we don't have one of those games this year. I don't know that we've had one of those games in a while. The teams that usually had that are Jackson State, Southern, now Alabama State. Generally, those seem to be the schools that do that. I don't know that we've done that. I don't know, and I'll have to double check, and I'll ask our SID, when is the last time we played a conference foe that didn't count in the conference standings? So that's very interesting,
Yeah.
and I'll have an answer for you on that one. So with that, let's close out with the World Series, epic World Series. Now, again, I don't have a dog in the fight.
Right.
I'm not in the mix at all. But I would say this: we've never seen anything like Shohei Ohtani the other night. Got on base
Man.
9 times in an 18-inning
Man.
game. 9 times. He had 2 home
Man.
runs, 2 doubles. He was walked intentionally 4 times and walked an additional time when it was unintentional. And then came back and pitched 6 innings last night. Now he got the loss, but unbelievable performance.
Man, dude is just a player, man. He just does it. They made a decision not to throw it to him, and then the game changes, and the next day they throw it to him, and he rocks him, and you just can't. One of the things I thought about, and I'll pose this question to you is, where does he fall at now in the greats of baseball? Like, is he up into Babe Ruth stratosphere now, or does he still have to do more?
I mean, I don't know that there'll ever be with the lore of Babe Ruth, I don't know that you'll ever top that. However,
Right, of course.
in the modern era, I think they'll be talking about him 100 years from now. I mean, unless we are
Yeah.
speaking Mandarin and we are no longer a nation. But that's a different conversation. If there's a United States
Yeah.
and if there's baseball, they'll be talking about Shohei Ohtani 100 years from now because it's that kind of performance.
Man.
Nobody's duplicating that. And now, again, people say, well, they wouldn't allow pitchers to do this. Look, we had a fit when one of our pitchers would hit a home run. In the National League, the pitchers had to bat, right? We weren't in the American League growing up. So we had an NL team. So if Nolan Ryan or Bob Nepper hit a home run or Mike Scott, it was like it was, snowing in July. It
Crazy.
was a crazy situation.
Right.
And to see this guy being one or two best hitters in baseball and still being a top-notch pitcher who's actually coming back from Tommy John. So it's unbelievable what you were seeing from this guy, man. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the mythology will grow.
Yeah, you see that performance, and whether you're a Dodgers fan or not, just from a sports perspective, you have to just tip your cap to that guy and say that was one hell of a performance.
No doubt. Hey, as we close it out, hey, man, final thoughts from you. A short show this time out. What are your final thoughts? What will you be looking for as we move into the weekend and beyond?
Well, my week will get started tomorrow when the Dolphins take down Baltimore and we continue to right the ship, getting ready for the playoffs. So there's that. And then I'm really looking forward to SWAC football this weekend. There's a lot of big games. Things are being determined, to be at a point this year where, there's so many good teams in the SWAC, so many good football games, and it's going to go down to the wire, and it really starts in earnest this week.
Yeah, and you'll be at you're going to come watch us this weekend, right?
Well, I'm a see. I thought about that, and I some kind of way at 55, you kind of start forgetting things, and Bama State gonna be at Prairie View this week. So,
oh, you're going to Prairie View. I didn't know that game was in Prairie View.
Yeah, it's here in Prairie View.
Oh,
And
so
there's a Hornet takeover too.
Okay,
there's a Hornet takeover as well.
That'll be fun. Well, hey, man, before we get out of here, I want to thank you for joining us. I know you have another meeting and you have some more media commitments and all of those things. We're going to cut this one short, but want to remind you, you can call us on the sports line 832-941-6614. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. For all of those who still enjoy the audio-only version, please continue to like and comment in those spaces, whether it's Spotify, TuneIn, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts. Please like and subscribe there as well. And want to thank you for joining us on either or both medium, as we like to. We're growing in the video space, and as you can tell, we finally got Reg in HD. We got him in high definition. So getting out of here. But until next time, please remember these 4 things.
Number 1, I don't do no favors after 6 o'clock in the evening. 2, I ain't got no money. 3, I'm not harboring any fugitives from justice. And 4, bye.
This has been the Sports Talk with Devin Wade podcast. Remember, you can follow him on Twitter at Wade's Word. Thank you for listening.